I used to be a cat. Every day the same. I'd be aloof till lunch, then coldly indifferent after. To me, everything was just, yeah. Then it hit me. Why be so cat? Why not be a bit more dog? I mean, look at the world today. It's amazing. Running, amazing. Chasing cars, amazing. Sticks, amazing. Carpe diem. It means grab the frisbee. Maybe we should all be a bit more dog.
Be more dog. O2.
I just like that advert. I like that. It's probably got nothing to do with Safety Day at all, but what the hell, all right. It's just, yeah. I suppose we could argue that trying something different, learning new skills can improve our life, but yeah, I just like that advert. All right. Okay, last year I did a session called Bob is Dead. Which turned out to be surprisingly popular, actually. It's on YouTube if you want to watch it. People do appear to occasionally see it. We looked at a fictitious character called Bob. Bob got killed as a result of a relatively small set of what seemed to be fairly insignificant events. Some of them he could control, some of them could be controlled by other people, and they basically combined to result in his fatality, his death. You know, little things, Bob's kit choices, his tendency to catch the kit on the front of the door as he climbed out, other things where people around him could have checked him properly instead of just signing for him on the flight line to help him out, speed things up and so on. And really what it was designed to show was that each person can individually contribute to the overall safety. It's not just one person, the DZ controller, the chief instructor, or a system that's in place at a centre. It's actually the contribution of lots and lots of different people that overall improves the safety of a parachute centre. So this year, basically, I'm jumping on the back of Bob's fame from last year, and hence this one's called Bob's Not Dead. Last year, I tried to teach you stuff. The intention of this year's is actually to get you to the end of this session and hopefully have you knowing less than you do now. Why isn't Bob dead? Everyone demands to know. Why is Bob not dead? What's going on? I'm relatively famed for some death stories and various other bits, so how come I'm dealing with someone that's not been killed yet this year? Alright, why isn't Bob dead? Primarily, my biggest belief is that Bob knows nothing. That's why he's not dead. Not only is he not dead, he seems to do quite a lot of jumps, and he just seems to get away with it. He's not involved in incidents, he doesn't seem to get hurt, he doesn't seem to land off or have malfunctions. He just seems to get away with it. And my sort of premise here is that basically it's because he knows nothing. So that's the goal here, that's the aim of this brief session, is going to be to try and get you to go to be like Bob, to know nothing at all by the end of it. Other alternative ideas, it could be just lucky. Problem with luck is that it runs out. If we try and follow a skydiving career based on luck and fortune, it will run out on us at some point. Naturally, of course, Bob improves his chances by coming to Safety Day. Of course. So, Bob's biggest goal today is to share information and to learn. He's worked out that the more he knows about skydiving, the safer he is. He wants to help share and pass on knowledge. But he's also realized that there's a general problem about knowledge and knowing information. Something that by attending today, you guys are already making steps and efforts to tackle. The problem with knowledge is that, well, firstly, without knowledge, life is simple. It's very easy to accept that you're good at things, to just plod along quite easily. Becoming more knowledgeable has its problems. Bob's not the only person to have realised this over the centuries either. There are a few others that have realised it too. Aristotle, the more you know you don't know. Probably not a direct translation, as he was writing in Latin, but there's, it's fairly sure that he wrote something to that effect in a document called Metaphysics. Albert Einstein said, the more I learn, the more I realise how much I don't know. And then I read in also a recent skydiving article by Major Al McCartney. I think it's actually titled, It's Not How Much You Know, but he also then implies that it's how much you don't know that's important. Bob has realised and learned that the more he knows, it makes him realise that there's even more to learn, even on a jump-by-jump basis. He's also worked out that there's a secondary effect of this. People with below average skill or knowledge tend to grossly overestimate their own abilities. That's something called the Dunning-Kruger effect, apparently. We all know this to be true as well. We've all met the 100-jump wonder who thinks they've got it. Where does the expression, all the gear, no idea come from? Yeah? We've already met these people. Overconfidence, often combined with a sort of arrogant nature, potentially makes these individuals the least knowledgeable people around, and therefore, potentially for you, the most dangerous person on the lift that you're jumping with. So Bob realised then that there was good news. He found that as a skydiver, he was surrounded by knowledge and information that allowed him to become better as a jumper. The reality was, however, it wasn't gaining access to information that was difficult. What he also had to realise was that the hardest part isn't learning the information, it's the honesty and admitting to himself that he didn't know certain things. He had to be honest to himself to realise that he had more to learn. Instead of that arrogant confidence, he had to actually take a step back and think, no, I need to think more about this. We need to break that cycle of complacency that can slip in as qualified jumpers and begin to think back as to what we need to do to redress that. Stop being a cat and change to being a dog. First step, first recommendation, Bob realised that no one was immune. This Dunning-Kruger effect has affected almost every skydiver at some point. Fortunately, for most of us, we're able to emerge through the period relatively unscathed. There is people around us that can help us through this. There are people, mentors, people that are jumping with you that have also perhaps realised they've gone through a stage of that part of their skydiving career and use that to help. Another barrier can be your ego. Don't let your ego get in the way. Ego does not help us too much. So take a fresh look. Bob had to take a step back, have a look at his own skydiving skills and work out where he was compared to other people. There's people with bingo writing stuff down, so I'm getting there, are we? Another part then is to challenge yourself. Challenge your own knowledge. Stop sitting in an aeroplane thinking, I'm all over this, I've got this, I know everything. But actually ask yourself, what is it that you don't know? What could you do now to improve what's going to happen in the next 10 or 15 seconds when the engine goes bang? Or something else occurs. So challenge yourself. What colour are your steering toggles? How are they attached to your risers for your reserve parachute? The day you use your reserve parachute, you could be at 1,500 feet, you could be at 800 feet when you look up and think, right, I need to get control of this parachute. They're probably not attached to the parachute in the same way that your main is. And 700 or 800 feet is not the time to be learning, oh, they're stuck with Velcro, how do I get these off? There's a great big wrap of Velcro around the top holding the lines in place. So by challenging yourself to ask questions about what you do, then it helps you improve your own skydiving, not necessarily ability, but dramatically improve your own safety. Next stage, recognize the skills in others. One of the written effects of this Dunning-Kruger effect is that those who lack skill generally fail to recognize it when it is around them. They ignore it. We're back to that sort of arrogant complacency. I don't need to know that because I don't need to bother with that kind of stuff. If you get into the habit of reversing that and recognizing the skills in others, then there will be times that as a result of that, you recognize that you lack in skills. Those of you that saw any footage or saw me in the tunnel on my back a few weeks ago with Lindley will recognize I definitely lack skills in that area. It's not just a peer thing either. It's not just a case of looking at people with more jumps or with instructor ratings or more skills in a certain area. It's looking around at everybody else. I'm fortunate to work with people that are learning to become instructors, those that plan to attend basic instructor courses. It's not uncommon to sit in a equipment lecture that I've taught many, many times over many years and then hear them use a phrase or a term and go, God, that's a really good way of putting that. The kit's been the same for the last 20 years, but I've never heard it. Oh, I'll write that down. You know, you can learn from everybody that's around you in skydiving, not just necessarily those that you perceive to have the skills that you'd like to attain. All that really combines to the concept that we should be continuously striving for mastery. We're never going to get there. The day you think, I've got this, I'm brilliant, is probably the day you've dropped back into the effect of being complacent and not seeing what's going on around us. The pioneers of skydiving would never have thought that we'd be where we are today when they were jumping modified round parachutes that were ex-military and they'd cut a few holes in it. The concept that we'd be wingsuiting and tracking and doing the things that we do with the parachutes that we jump, you know, would have never even occurred to them. Skydiving is beautifully dynamic like that. It's progressive, it's constantly moving and changing. And as a result of that, even just a moment of standing still thinking, yeah, I'm all right, I've got this, it eliminates, you know, it causes problems for you. So strive for mastery, help yourself out. So how does Bob apply his knowledge? The answer to that really is just absolutely everywhere. It's not just a general, well, I know about my kit. He needs to know about his kit in order to remain safe. He needs to know how the Collins lanyard thingy interacts with the skyhook thingy that he ticked on the box on the form because it was $200 and so it must be cool to have it. We've got kit here that has a Collins lanyard fitted to it and no skyhook. How many of you have kit with a skyhook that does or does not? Does it have a Collins lanyard or does it not? And how do the two interact? It's a pretty important part of what you're using to save your life. There are things like that that become relevant. Jumps. Okay, so his first set of knowledge is I should find out what the jump run is. Every time I jump, I need to know which way the aircraft is flying. Where's the expected exit area? But he needs to modify that every time he gets in an airplane. Is there one group? Are there 6 groups? Are there lots of groups that are going to take a long time in the door? And how does that change what's happening on this individual jump? So it's not just learning about today's conditions or the prevailing conditions, it's each specific jump that he has to use some of his knowledge to make him realize that he needs to go and gain further knowledge. Once he's gone past this stage here and knows the run-in and he knows there are 6 groups, he's modifying it again in the airplane. He's seeking more knowledge. Why are these people taking a long time to get out? Do I need to change what I'm planning to do, my opening height, my deployment height, because people are doing something different from plan A? Do I need to change some of the perspective ideas that I had about what I was doing on this freefall jump in order to open and compensate and get back? Break-off and deployment. Break-offs hopefully are routine, but not always. What happens if you're in a five-way and there's one person missing and you don't know where they are? Do you need to adapt or change at that stage? So this constant refreshing of knowledge, rather than making a presumption that, well, I'm going to track that way because that was the plan we did on the ground and I don't know where he is, but he'll turn up at some point, that's where we can result in a collision or a problem. The list really goes on, you know, malfunctions, canopy flight, landing on, landing off, making the decisions all the way down. The more you preload your mind with knowledge, the easier those decisions are on the way down. When we see people making not necessarily catastrophic mistakes, but mistakes landing off or dealing with malfunctions, it's often because they're over fixated on plan A and they're not using the knowledge that is around them at the time to modify things. Why is Bob not dead? Essentially, Bob's not dead because he knows nothing. He understands that he's always got more to learn and can do more to help himself and the people around him with their safety. He's not reliant on luck. We're not putting that back on the screen, but of course we are putting the fact that Bob goes to safety day. We're refreshing our knowledge, we're learning new things, we're applying or gaining more information that might make us out there think differently and therefore do things slightly differently. If we challenge ourselves to be slightly better and 50 people in this room do something that makes them very slightly better, the global effect of that is huge. You know, it's immensely different. He practices what he learns, he puts it into reality. And some of them actually will even go to Lindley's scenario sessions that run. That's it really for my start of the day. I have to just make that comment. Most of this was written or inspired by reading an article in the USPA magazine a couple of years ago, written by a lady I've never met, Jen Sharp, but I read it and I thought, oh, that's a good idea. So if you want to know more about the sort of psychology of what we do when we get complacent, I thought that was a really good starting point. It's a really interesting bit, and you can get that off the USPA website. If you just sort of type that in, it comes up pretty easily. There's another article that's currently on the Skydiving Mag website, written by Al. It's not how much you know, that's worth. I used a little bit of text from that in here as well. So there is information out there that's quite useful to look at. There we go, a brief one this morning. Sometimes I can go on for ages, but luckily we've powered through that fairly quickly. Any questions? So that's a food for thought, which is where I always generally try and sort of aim these initial sessions. Be it this one, I did a normalization of deviance. Yep, that's would you like me to say PIA dual square report as well? Yes, okay, good. Let's get some of them out of the way so you've got a slight head start over others. I'll not be necessarily mentioning that one as we go through the day. All right, brief food for thought. Little bits that we do improve everybody's safety. When people continuously seem to jump out of aeroplanes and be safe, it's not just a remarkable coincidence. It's because they're doing little things each time. You know, they open and they already know which way to fly. They know where the sun is relative to where they are. Our prevailing wind is this way. So when we have, as we have today, an east wind and we're jumping, you see it straight away. You see people opening over there. They look down and go, this isn't familiar. And then you'll see 2 to 3 360-degree turns, and we all stand here going, they're lost. They've got no idea that we're running in that way, because they haven't used the information that was around us. They've just assumed, oh, it's always going to be the same. Essence. Be more Bob. Keep yourself alive.